It's the After the Snow podcast. Welcome back to another episode. This is number 26, I believe. I'm your co-host, Dave Mays. And as usual, every week, by my side, Freeway Rick Ross.
You already know it forever.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's
we
what's
ain't
up.
switching up. Ain't no switch up with us.
Yeah, for real. You know, it's a rare breed, you know, that has that kind of loyalty and respect for each other, man.
You already know, man. Now we need more of that in the world.
We do.
People jump the cruise too fast. You know what I'm saying? First time they hit a bump in the road, they gone. Like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, man. So what you up to? I know you're out of town getting ready for a big weekend.
Oh man, it's an exciting week for me. I'm ecstatic, you know, to have one of the first guys that I worked with, you know, almost from the start to now see them fighting on TV, for me is like a big deal, you know. I can't even explain the words, you know.
So who's fighting, and what day, and where can people watch it? Because this will be out in time for people to, you know, still tune in.
You can see the fight on the Zone. They'll be fighting Saturday. The fight probably gonna start around 7 o'clock. You probably can tune in around 7 and catch it. I don't know the exact time. You know, I still don't keep up with times and dates and all that stuff. It's just, but yeah, it'll be on the Zone Saturday. The fighter is Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield Jr. So, you know, y'all tune in, check him out. You know, this is just a preview of what I got coming. You know, I've been working really hard at this boxing. I'm really passionate about it, and I believe that I can do some big things in this game.
What's his record?
He's 10-0 right now. He'll be 11-0 at the Saturday.
Yeah.
Looking for a title shot. You know, he wants to fight. He wants to fight some of the big guys. You know, he's looking to fight the Tanks, the Devin Haney's, the Ryan Garcias, the Telefinos. You know, all the big guys. He wants a piece of all of them. And he's a young guy too. He's still just 19 years old, so he still has a lot of growing to do and a lot of development to do. But at the end of the day, you know, in that ring, he's a grown man.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'll check him out. First time on TV.
Yeah, we'll be tuning in and rooting for him to get a nice little knockout Saturday.
Yeah, knockout will be big. Knockout will be big for him. First time, you know, be like Bo Jackson. First time at bat, he get a grand slam, man.
All right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So before we get into Snowfall, I also wanted to talk to you about your trip this past weekend, because you went to one of my old stomping grounds, which is Boston, Massachusetts.
Man, off the change.
Yeah, what was going on out there? I ain't been to the Bean in a minute.
Man. I went to a community center, standing room only, man. Standing room only. I mean, it was relatively small, you know, probably only 50, 75 people there, but with me, it ain't how big the crowd is. You know, it's how the crowd received your message, and I felt, you know, that they really received it well. It was just overwhelming, man. The love that I got, you know, from being there with those guys and those ladies, man. They just showed mad love. Boston. Shout out to Boston, man.
Well, you were there for a few days, right? Like 2-3 days?
Well, I did that. Then next, I went to a female empowerment golf tournament. Can you believe that? A female empowerment group. They threw a golf tournament.
Okay.
Everywhere you go, they had weed stations.
Really? Like pop-up?
Yeah, all over. And each hole, man, each hole had a pop-up with somebody with different brands of marijuana and edibles and vapes and potato chips and, you know, just all the stuff, man. They was just out marketing their product. Marijuana sponsored the golf tournament for this empowerment group. So it was nice, man, to say the least. So Boston, thumbs up on Boston, man.
Well, shout out to the Bean. You know, for those that don't know, that's where I got my start really in the hip hop world and created the Source magazine back in the late 80s. I was at Harvard University as an undergrad. Harvard is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is basically like borders on Boston, right across the river. And yeah, I hosted a radio show on the station there, 95.3 FM. Radio show was called Street Beat for 4 years. A lot of people that are from Boston back in the day, they know me as Go-Go Dave because that was my radio host name. Yeah, they still call me Go-Go up there in Boston. And then the Source started, 2 years after I got to college, and started as a newsletter that went out to all the hip hop fans in Boston. And that really was my inspiration for creating the Source, was, just the fans in Boston really, and how much, they loved hip hop and how much they wanted to know more about it and things like that. So,
and just blossom.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that it would get as big as it got?
Yeah.
When you started?
I mean, yeah, the very, very first newsletter, maybe not, but very soon after I did. I mean, I read this book about Rolling Stone magazine, which I didn't know anything about, but Rolling Stone back in the 70s and really the 80s, it was the biggest magazine, for pop culture in the country and the world. It was huge. But it had started as an underground newspaper back in the late 60s by this young kid who was a rock and roll fan. So I saw a lot of parallels and had a lot of inspiration when I learned that story. And I was like, man, I could do the same thing. I can start this small and turn it into the voice of the hip hop generation, same way Rolling Stone did for the rock generation.
Yes.
So yeah, that was my plan early on.
Well, people say don't be a copycat, and my guy said make sure you copying the right cat. So when you using people like that to get ideas from and to broaden your horizon, and that was one of the things I talked to them about at the meeting in Boston. Was a lot of times they tell us don't be a copycat, but now I know make sure you copying the right cat.
Yeah,
and it's so important, and that you got your inspiration from the guy who started Rolling Stone, because he gave you the ability to say, you know what, I could do the same thing he did.
That's right. So yeah,
and
man.
I get a lot of mine from that too. From seeing other people accomplish things that then I say, maybe I can do the same thing, or even better than what they did. Because the idea is to do better than what they did, but to take inspiration from them.
Yeah, so shout out to Boston, to Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, South End, all the hoods out there that I used to spend a lot of time in. And, definitely got love.
Oh, no doubt. And they be watching our show. They be watching us.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
And they know where you from too.
Okay.
They claiming they Dave. They claiming Dave.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. They should. So let's get into this week's episode. We may have a big guest next week. We got to holler at your boy Echo and see if we can get this locked in. So I don't want to get people too excited, but yeah. I'm excited about the guests that we might have on next week. So keep in tune. We'll keep you posted on that one. But this week we're talking about season 2, Snowfall. This is episode 4. It's called Jingle Bell Rock because it's taking place around Christmas time is what we're seeing. Jingle Bell Rock. I don't know why they use that song in particular. It's a song from the late 50s, that's become a Christmas classic staple. But that's what they named the episode. So I don't think there's more to it than it was. I guess rock. I guess that's what they're trying to play off, the rock and the rock cocaine. So there you go.
Very interesting. I didn't think about that they was trying to do the play.
It just came in my head now because I didn't see it at first. I was like, well, why did they pick that song? You could have picked any Christmas song, but
it makes sense though, because they during the episode, one of the things that we noticed that Franklin was concerned about was hiring cooks because he didn't want his recipe to get out. He was afraid of people getting the recipe.
Yeah. Now I feel like we may have talked about this on one of our previous episodes, but I wanted to ask you about it again. Was that an issue for you when you got involved, or did people already kind of know how to make it, and did you bring any innovations into that process?
Well, they were definitely already cooking when I got started, so I didn't bring cooking to the game. But what I did do, and kind of like what Franklin is saying in there, about it being kind of a secret, per se, but not really. People would allow you to watch them do it, but nobody really was sitting down explaining it to anybody. If you didn't already know. At least for me, they definitely never explained it to me. So it was kind of a secret, because they, say for instance, I would go buy my dope, and then I would bring it to somebody, and then they would charge me, say I'd get an eighth. Eighth would be about $350, and then they would charge me another $50 to cook it up. But they probably would take $50 in dope, because most of the cookers was smoking at the same time. So it was kind of a secret, and they kind of protected it a little bit, but not to the extent to where we see Franklin trying to protect it, where he's almost stopping production, because he can't find cooks that he can trust.
Right. Well, when your operation grew and you started setting up your own cook houses, were those similar to what we're seeing in Snowfall? And how did you, I guess you weren't worried about the recipe, but still trusting people in that kind of environment. How did you guys manage that?
Well, from the beginning, it was just a couple of us and I would cook too, but what we did is we started to learn rapidly. First we was cooking a gram, then we was cooking 3 grams, and then we was cooking a quarter. And next, we cooking ounces, and it just evolution till we cooking quarter pounds, and then in the end we were cooking 30, 40 kilos at one time. We figured out that. It was really no different from cooking 40 kilos and cooking 1 gram. You just had to have bigger utensils to cook in. And that's what we got these great big old cooking pots, the ones that you see when you go to restaurants and they be cooking green beans for the whole city.
Right.
Yeah, so they had those big old pots. So what we did is start getting those industrial pots, industrial stoves, and it made our job a lot easier.
Got it. So, this is an episode where, they're dealing with the aftermath of the 2 dealers that got stabbed to death in the Mexican neighborhood. So we saw that happen. But now we're still dealing with the aftermath here. The guys, Franklin is trying to rally the troops, so to speak. Jerome's telling him, people are kind of losing faith in you a little bit. And so, Franklin plan is, let's go out, buy a whole bunch of guns, We'll bring the whole, group together, and we'll give everybody guns. We'll teach them how to use the guns so they can be better protected from these type of things happening.
We did something similar to that too. I would buy guns for all the guys. In South Central, it's kind of important to be able to protect yourself. It's funny that one of my little guys, he just got out of prison a couple months back, and I can remember when he was about 14 or 15, and he's driving around in a brand new BMW, and he wasn't a gang member. He wasn't a gang member, but the gang members used to chase him. Because he
Hmm.
was a little boy in a car, got some money, and he would always come running to me, Rick. This guy named Dwight would be chasing him, trying to take his money. So, and we saw the same thing basically happen to two of Franklin's guys. They came in, the guy took all the money, all the dope, and sent them on their way. So we had a similar situation where I would give all my guys guns so that they could protect themselves.
hmm Now, we may have talked about this on a previous episode as well, but I want to bring it back up. As far as the availability of guns and the presence of guns, because the way it's presented in this episode, it's kind of like, you know, most of these guys don't have guns and have never used guns before. So it's kind of seems like, guns are just becoming more part of things in the street life, let's say, at this stage. So speak on that a little bit, if you would.
Well, when you don't have any money, you're not gonna have no guns. Nobody gonna give you no gun for free. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Maybe if your homie, your homie might let you hold his pistol, but for the most part, if there's no money, there's no guns. And when there's plenty of money, there's plenty of guns. So, as you start to make more money in the dope business, you can buy better guns and more of them. And that's what basically happened to us. When we were growing up, it was a couple guys might have had a 22 where they had broken somebody's house and stole a 22, or, a shotgun, or, every now and then a M1 rifle. But for the most part, we didn't really have guns. They weren't really prevalent in our neighborhoods because we didn't have the cash to sustain them.
Hmm.
So, but once you start having money, we started to see more and more weapons become more and more readily available to
Okay.
us.
Makes sense. Um, so just going back to dealing with this fallout, um, from the stabbing deaths, obviously it's bringing a rift between Franklin and his boy Kevin. Last episode, we saw Franklin slap him. Um, and when this episode opens up, Franklin comes back to the house with everybody and he apologizes to Kev. He's trying to, smooth things over. But as the episode goes on, we're seeing there's still quite a bit of tension when they're in the club later on celebrating with all the team there, taking them out for this night of fun. Kev and Franklin have some words. Kev tells Franklin that he took 5,000 out of the proceeds to give to his cousin's mom. His cousin that had just got murdered. Franklin doesn't like that. That he didn't tell him about it, and made a point to let him know. You can't just take money without telling me. And um, and then Kev also basically, what was the term he used? He said, you have us still out here like bitches, So in his mind, because they didn't do something, drastic to retaliate, they're looking soft and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that dynamic.
Yeah, well, you have to weigh the variables between being soft and being a fool. On the one hand, if you go and retaliate, you could bring the police involved. You know, um, I'm surprised the police didn't come and get more involved anyway, just from the two murders. But you're talking about now, if they go and retaliate on Mexicans, just any random, because basically they still don't know who did the murder. So if you go and retaliate just on anybody, then you could bring more heat on you and eventually get your business shut down. So you always have that balancing act. Do I want to take a chance on getting my business shut down by going and being tough, and getting revenge, or do I be smart and figure out a way that I can do this without bringing attention, and the publicity that would go along with me retaliating?
Okay. So we're kind of seeing Franklin dealing with how to manage the growth of the business, because obviously we've seen from like the last episode, product is moving, business is growing fast, lots of things happening. So, Franklin is being, kind of challenged here to elevate his leadership and figure out the right ways to manage growing a big operation like this.
Especially for somebody who's never ran a business, who's never really been in charge, because they really didn't give us any background on where Franklin got his business savvy from. Say like a guy like me, I've always kind of been in charge of my crew. When we played football, I was a quarterback. We played basketball, I'm the point guard. When we played baseball, I'm the pitcher. So I'm usually, I've always been pretty much in a position of leadership, even though it was unspoken. It wasn't something that we took a vote and everybody said, "Oh, Rick, you're the leader." No, it was something that was just kind of like understood,
Mhm.
as you would say.
Yeah, well, so one of the things, because I mean, I think also that entrepreneurial sense, something that some people are kind of born with, um, because I was always entrepreneurial as a kid, different little hustles and things, always trying to make money so I could buy things that I wanted, from a very young age, and always trying to figure out how to make more money. Um, and when going back to what I was talking about earlier, even when I started the source, I didn't know anything about magazines or magazine publishing, but I figured it out as I went along. I wasn't intimidated by that. I just looked at it like, it's not that hard to do. I just got to figure it out. I got to study what other people are doing, meet the right people, try to learn from different, people and resources of how to, perfect this business. But you don't have to have formal training necessarily, to really, have a knack for picking that kind of stuff up.
Yeah, well, you were fearless. You didn't have any fear of failure. Some people have a tendency to not think that they can. They don't think that they can make it. So uh, um, they never try. So you may not know where you got that skill from, but you picked that skill up from somewhere, from something that taught you to have that fearlessness to go for what you believe you should be going for.
Hmm.
Um, I don't believe that's natural.
Hmm.
I believe it's something that we learn uh, through some form or some fashion. I believe that everything that we do, everything that we say, is stuff that we've heard other people say, saw, and maybe we don't do it exactly like they do it, but we've taken bits and pieces of everything we've saw, heard, and been around, and that's how we come up with our own assumptions of what it is.
Hmm. So one of the things that Franklin is doing to try to figure out how to manage things is he has Teddy bring him to this banker guy who's offering to basically launder his cash for him. Set up. He set up an account overseas, set up a corporation overseas. When Franklin tells him he wants to invest his money into real estate, and the guy's like, well, we can set this corporation up overseas, and that'll kind of shield you from people kind of knowing who's investing, buying these properties or whatever he was hoping to do with the money. So, but he's still very suspicious. We don't know whether he went forward with that or not. But
was it his idea or Teddy's idea?
Well, it may have been Teddy. I think, Teddy made the comment, like, you're bringing me all these 35s and ones, have you ever used a bank before? Like, why aren't you bringing me bigger bills? And that was, I think, the start of the conversation a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, because, one of the things that I be thinking, here this guy is from South Central LA, he don't know about all that stuff. He don't know about laundering money. Like when I was coming up, I didn't know about laundering money. I didn't know about having bank accounts in foreign countries and where do you learn that from?
Right.
How do you find out about these things? Well, the only way you can find out about them is somebody who has that experience and that knowledge starts to give you those ideas. And that's why I was kind of curious about, this being Franklin's idea, is because, I don't know where he could have got. His mom definitely wasn't thinking about investing in the Cayman Islands and,
Right.
having offshore bank accounts. And his dad, who we found out was a dope fiend and was a recovering addict and homeless. So he definitely wasn't thinking about having offshore accounts and so forth. So,
Right.
you got to wonder where did Franklin get these ideas from and what made him
Right.
start thinking like that.
I mean, did you ever reach that point where you started to learn about that type of stuff, or?
Yeah, it was much later though in the game. They were telling me about going over to Panama and Switzerland. One time they were saying Switzerland was a good place to park some money. But it was at a much later time. It wasn't in the beginning of my career when I only had 20, 30,000, $40,000.
Right.
Money buys you knowledge. When people
Right.
find out you got money, they want to give you information. Whether it's good information, sometimes not good information. But their main purpose is that they're trying to get some of that money that you got.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you were there any people that you met along the way in your travels, that either you went into business with who were, from, maybe a more corporate world or anything like that, or maybe gave you some advice? Did you eventually, meet people like that you were able to,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
access?
I did a lot of real estate deals. I actually finished one motel. I was in the process of building 3 more. But in that process, I used to go to the city of Los Angeles, put a moratorium on motels, and that's why I didn't get the other 3 finished. It wasn't because that I wasn't capable of finishing them, but the city put a moratorium on them. Right before, and then I got arrested before the moratorium was lifted. But I used to go to all the meetings, where everybody was trying to get the moratorium taken off of motels, and I met some pretty powerful people in the motel and hotel business. It was definitely a booming business. Also in the real estate business, I met some pretty substantial people in that as well. So yes, I did meet people, who taught me tricks, who taught me things that to this day I still want to exercise those but I can't exercise them until I get my money up. You know, you can't work these kind of deals, you know, with 100,000, 200,000. You really need, you know, $3, $4, $5 million to really be able to play in the games that some of these. It's almost like a card game. You know, you walk into a poker game and the buy-in is 400,000. You know, and all you got is 50. You got to sit back and watch. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the position I'm in right now with some of the games that I learned uh, uh, from people that I did business with, who used to help me clean my money up. Really, you know.
Did you ever do any kind of business with Danilo outside of, you know, your main business with him?
No, we never did. I almost got a rent-a-car place. You know, he was big in the rent-a-car places, and I almost got a rent-a-car agency, but it didn't happen for some reason or another. But
Okay.
no, we never did anything else outside of, you know, we swapped a few cars, but you know, wasn't wasn't no big deal. You know, wasn't no real business deal. No.
Right. Right. Um, so just finishing the thought about, you know, kind of the business growing and the type of pressures that Franklin is having to deal with and the decisions he's got to start making. And, you know, I think even Teddy gave him a little speech about that. You know, you got to decide who you're going to trust because you can't do it all yourself, that type of thing. So we see Franklin in this episode making the decision to bring Wanda in to help with the cooking because he's been, you know, he was afraid to bring Wanda in because he didn't want her to run her mouth or, you know, tell people about the recipe or whatever, talk about it. And we see him getting involved in the split between Jerome and Louis. So
Yeah.
they're having a fight. Louis, you know, basically walks out on Jerome and is shacked up with homegirl from the nightclub. Um, I'm still a little confused about why there was so much animosity or problems there. I guess Louis just really wanted a little more control and independence. Um, Maybe she felt Jerome wasn't respecting her place. Um, but yeah, Franklin tries to smooth that over. He's like, you know, telling Louis, you know, we need you. And so I think those were some other things that kind of spoke to the kind of challenges and the decisions he's got to make to help manage the growth of what's going on.
Yeah, because he definitely wanted Louis to come back. He was definitely trying to get her back, and old girl was peeping that too. That he was trying to bring her back to their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like she had been spending lavishly on Auntie Louis.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she brought her
Yeah,
home.
Louis said she had been enjoying herself. Stuff that
Yeah.
I felt that she was saying like it was stuff that Jerome hadn't been doing. You know what
Mm.
she had been doing for Jerome wasn't doing it. So um, she felt real good about her situation.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So yeah, she probably feels like Jerome taking her for granted. I can understand that. But I guess maybe one or two other things that I think are important in this episode we should touch on. You know, one was the whole situation that Teddy finds himself in, having to recruit his brother in the middle of the night to go dig up some bodies in the middle of some abandoned
Yeah,
area.
that threw me off there. I was like, why is he digging up bodies he already disposed of? You know, it was like really baffled me. You know, why were they doing that?
Right. Well, apparently he chose a poor place to bury Alejandro and the woman a couple episodes ago. Um, you know, he didn't take him out to the desert, apparently. Um, Maybe try to cut some corners, but it's some type of area that he reads in the paper is being dug up for building some sites for the Olympics that were coming to LA. and they were going to dig up this whole area and build some stuff for the Olympics. And he's freaking out, goes over there to find out what's going on, and basically realizes, they're going to dig these bodies up in the next day or so. I don't hurry up and get him out of there. So yeah, he has to bring his brother down, and they managed to find the bodies and get him out of there before sun up. But
well, I'm glad you explained that to me, because I was totally baffled on that. I went kind of hard on the writers. I was like, oh, they're just throwing in fillers right now, trying to fill some pages up. So I guess that makes more sense to me, since the way you explained it.
Yeah, it was still kind of odd, I'm not sure what the purpose of it is, because maybe we'll learn more why that was important later, and not just something they just threw in there for a little extra pizzazz. But that, and then the other big news is, we see Pedro, remember, has come back, and he's now working with Lucia and Oso. We haven't really talked about them this episode. They only had a couple, parts in it. And
pretty big stuff though. The raid was pretty dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that would have shook me up. I probably would have changed locations that day. I would have totally revamped everything, threw all the phones away.
Right.
I probably would have been finding some people to get rid of. But then I guess since they come under INS, they kind of threw them a little bit, with the INS exposure. But I don't care who it was. With me, if it had been law enforcement coming to my spot, I would have totally changed.
Right. You would have felt like something funny's going on. It wasn't just a coincidence that they showed up.
Absolutely. Right. I'd have been looking for bugs,
yeah.
And definitely with the cousin and his girlfriend coming back, I definitely would have been looking at them sideways, like, damn, this shit didn't happen till y'all got here.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It seemed like Oso has got his eye on things, is probably thinking along those lines. Lucia, because he says to her, "You got a soft spot for your cousin." At one point in the show.
Oh yeah, sure does. I remember that now.
Yeah,
and then the girlfriend is out running, having secret meetings, with undercover police officers.
Well, that's the big news. The big news at the end, we see the girlfriend, Soledad, doing her little jogging through the park and meeting up with, what appears to be a law enforcement agent, and exchanging information. So we now know she's undercover law enforcement that's infiltrating, Lucia and Oso's operations along with Pedro. So, that's going to be interesting. And then we see now that they used an immigration raid that's kind of cover for her, because when the raid was, she happened to be there, Soledad, and she starts talking mad shit, and she's yelling back and trying to show Lucia how down she is, and the INS agent slaps her, and she's going into a whole thing to try to convince Lucia that she's down. Seemed like it worked on Lucia, but hopefully between her and Oso, they wise up sooner than later.
Yeah, we'll see.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think we covered most of the important stuff. There was, a few more things with Franklin's mom and dad coming back in the story for a little bit at the end, where she goes down to the hospital and reluctantly brings him back home. So we'll see, what happens with that going forward. It's Christmas time. Everybody's, most people seem happy.
Cheers.
Yeah, seem happy and optimistic. And but I'm sure we come back next week and we're gonna find some twists and turns that take some of that cheer right out of there.
We got to see the party too. They had a party.
That's true.
Franklin and them had a party. Yes,
That's
they had
right.
some fun. They had some fun.
Yeah.
And some of that money.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
Exactly. That was a good scene. So yeah, man, let's wrap up. This is another episode of After the Snow. We appreciate y'all for checking us out and staying in tune. The new Snowfall will probably come out next year. They announced the last season is going to be made, a final season. I don't think it'll come out till next year, but we'll try to keep going through these back episodes before we get geared up for the the new season coming back next year. But
we'll be caught up. We should be caught up.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully we'll get this guest
close
next week.
To it. Hey, don't forget, y'all tell a friend, check us out, and send us your comments on what you think about the show, what you think we should be talking about, where we missing the point at, and where we right on time.
Yes, please do. You can follow, the network at Breakbeat Media on Instagram. You can follow me at The Real Dave Mays on Instagram and at Freeway Ricky on Instagram for Rick.
Yes.
After the Snow, another one. Appreciate y'all.
Peace.
Peace.